Hello, welcome to Headlines and Voices, where we uncover fascinating and often forgotten stories and articles from the not-so-distant past. We sincerely appreciate you watching, listening, and subscribing, following, etc., our channels. The article I'm going to read to you today is not for the faint at heart. If you have... This can be challenging to listen to. It's a description of Gettysburg right after the big battle. It's from a newspaper in, July 11th, 1863. And this is a person visiting the battlefield a day or so after the fighting had finished, and explains what he sees there. And it's pretty rough to get through. So I just want to give you a warning if you have difficulty listening to that kind of thing. This is pretty descriptive and a little bit disturbing to listen to. But again, this is somebody that actually went to the battlefield at Gettysburg, and this is the description of what they saw after the fact. So this article is just called "The Field of Battle near Gettysburg, Pennsylvania." My visit to the field was made this Tuesday morning, and it presented a wonderful, though sorrowful, spectacle for the curious. Most of the dead had been buried, but many were still lying about, few, however, being Federal soldiers. Every fence was knocked down, and every house or shed upon the field or around it had its windows shattered, its walls torn out, and its roof in tatters. The fences had all been torn down by passing and repassing troops, or else they had been carried off bodily to make barricades or breastworks. The stones, previously scattered over the surface of the ground, had been collected in piles for rifle pits. Nearly every tree had limbs torn from it, and all bore marks of bullets. Some had their bark stripped off in shreds by the wind of passing shells. The ground was tramped into a bog and was covered with every conceivable thing. Old broken muskets, bayonets, and ramrods, pieces of wagons, broken wheels, cartridge boxes, torn clothing, blankets, fragments of shells, and sometimes unploded ones. Bullets, cartridges, powder, everything used in war or by soldiers was scattered around in plenty. The grains of grass which once grew there was almost ground to a jelly. Everywhere could be seen traces of the carnage. Hundreds of dead horses, still unburied, lay on the field. And in boggy places and spots distant from the town, many of the men were still unburied. There is something impressive about a dead man on a battlefield. To see him lying there with his hands clenched, his teeth set, and his limbs drawn up, with ramrod or musket firmly held, lying just as he was standing when the fatal bullet struck him, teaches a sad lesson. To see scores of them is more impressive, and that, with the awful desolation and havoc and ruin on all sides, shows far too plainly for delicate sense the terrible end of battle. To know that at this fence where so many lie, a tug-of-war was had for hours, to feel that tree whose bark is stripped off, showing red stains on the inner wood, has received the gushing blood of some poor soldier, is by far the best teacher of war's evils. And when, after all this is over, men still lie on the damp ground, undisturbed as they fell, with hawks and crows and buzzards sailing lazily over them, their countenances bearing an expression of horror, as the blearing, bloodshot eyes, the blackened face, and the contorted features turn up towards you when all this is seen, and the fact that thousands like them have lain there before is impressed upon the mind, a remembrance is left which cannot be effaced. Sermons and precepts may be exhausted in vain, but the lesson taught by a dead man slain in battle, lying in his gore, is worth 10,000 holiday exhortations, Yet many look upon it without emotion. Many walk about amid the horrid stench of that field unmoved. They turned over the rubbish, picked up bullets and fragments of shells for mementos, but that was all. All over the field there are newly made graves. There are long rows of them, parallel to each other, where the Federal soldiers lie. Where the carnage has been great, a trench receives the remains of all. They are thrown in indiscriminately without burial service or coffin. And that is the end of the article. Hope you found that interesting. Thank you for taking the time to visit with us today, and we really appreciate you watching, listening, and subscribing to our channels. Hope you have a fantastic day.